This is John Leeson. Sorry, this is John Leeson, and I'm just identing myself with the sirens of audio.
What? What are you doing, me two? Hello, me one. What do you mean? Well, you've gone all black and white. Yes, it's my new strategy for the podcast. What's wrong with the current strategy? Well, I'm re-editing the episodes by turning the original content black and white, stretching the podcast out from 1 hour to 5. This will appeal to the new, modern audience. But me too? You know our audience is old and nostalgic, don't you? You've seen the figures. I've seen the figures, but I don't care. I'm going ahead anyway. And if anyone actually disagrees with your cunning plan, they wouldn't dare. G'day, audiophiles. This is the Sirens of Audio, the show that explores the universe of Doctor Who and other cult TV in the audio medium. I'm Dwayne.
And I'm Philip. G'day, Dwayne. G'day, audiophiles.
G'day, Philip. How's it going? It feels like forever since we've sat down to do one of these.
No, we did one mid. No, it's not been, but it does feel like it's been a very busy, big 3 weeks. That's for sure.
Feels like lots and lots has happened. We've been hanging out a lot together in person, which has been great. But today I made my way back to Tasmania, and you're in your beloved home city of Sydney.
Oh, can I just say, we had the most glorious day today. After lousy weather travelling the country, Sydney really put on a beautiful show of 28 degrees, clear skies, lovely southeasterly breeze. It's been gorgeous.
Can I just say it was 29 degrees here in Tassie today as well.
No,
so
that's too hot.
Good weather here too. Yeah, it's like a heat wave, 29. All right, we are going to be talking today about the original Big Finish spin-off, the very first one that came out many, many years ago. Because, of course, it's been 25 years since Big Finish has been producing Doctor Who. But we're going to be talking about Dalek Empire today, the first series. There are 4 series of Dalek Empire. We're going to be talking about the first one. And not only that, we are going to be speaking with the creator of that series, Nicholas Briggs. He's going to be joining us to talk about that. Very excited to share that with you. But before we do, Philip, do you know what?
No, what, Dwayne?
We have to jump down the rabbit hole. Let's go. Right, Philip, I thought since we've had such a busy week, we could talk about what we've been doing over the last 3 weeks. So what have we been doing?
We've been mad.
And why have you been so crazy to put all this in motion?
Yeah, and it was Janet Fielding's, but I always blame Janet. We have had Sylvester McCoy and Janet Fielding in Australia, and we have done 5 cities in 3 weeks, seeing hundreds of people. Great turnouts. I mean, much bigger turnouts. late people buying tickets, but big turnouts in every city in the end. And just, going on tour. It has been absolutely wonderful. So Janet was with us from Melbourne and Adelaide. So we did Melbourne one weekend. The following weekend we did Adelaide and Hobart, but Janet was with us for Melbourne and Adelaide. Then she flew home, decided to take a holiday with her family to Cairns instead of staying with us. She just didn't have the grit to keep going. But Sylvester has been an unbelievable trooper and been with us through Melbourne, Adelaide, Hobart, and this weekend was Brisbane, Friday, Saturday, Sydney, Sunday. So it has been an epic haul, but what a joy and so many stories, both in public and private, both things. And Sylvester had an amazing time. Well, he says he does, but he may lie to us. But he says he's had an amazing time. and he'll be flying off on Thursday to Chicago. So he's had a huge
To
time.
do it all again over there.
Yeah, 2 days in Chicago, but then he goes on a cruise for 3 weeks. But even on the cruise, it's a Doctor Who cruise, so every night he'll be on table with Doctor Who fans. No doubt regaling them with lots of stories, which he's great at. How have you found the last 3 weeks, Dwayne?
Oh, fantastic! Really, really good. Sylvester's so easy to be around. He's he seems to enjoy. I had the opportunity to show him around Tassie a little bit, so that was fantastic. Even though he kind of smashed out a huge weekend just before in Adelaide and Hobart, and then spent that week. So we got some sightseeing in. So I was able to take him down to Port Arthur and up Mount Wellington and out to see some of our local wildlife, because Tasmania has some unique wildlife, even to the rest of Australia. So he had the opportunity to see some of those, like the Tassie Devils, which is unique to us. So that was quite a thrill, and just to see his energy as well. He puts everything into his appearances for the fans. He loves doing it for the fans. He goes into he likes to give everyone lots of value. So I'm sure anyone who's been to the events would agree that they just got more than they expected from Sylvester. I think they, without a doubt, I think he would have surprised everybody.
Yeah,
with his
I was really worried last night at the VIP dinner that he would be gone, because in the green room he was so tired, and then we had 20 VIPs, and so we're moving him round and round every half an hour. I made him get up and move somewhere else, and so it kept doing different groups of people every half an hour. And I set up so that 8:30 we could leave, and he stayed for another hour and a half. Because he was
lucky last table, eh?
Yeah, lucky last, and and the people just hung around. I mean, a few people had gone for different reasons, understandably, but anyone who hung around, they just sort of gathered around him. So there was this throng of people around the table as he was just telling them stories, and one of them was texting his parents saying, "I'll be out sometime." Getting them waiting for an hour. But yeah, it was just wonderful to see him in his element. And there was one person that I was chatting to, this was the first time I'd ever been to an event ever, any Doctor Who event ever, really been with Doctor Who fans ever. He was a Seventh Doctor fan, and I look at his photo in the Dropbox with all they had taken with Sylvester, and the utter joy on his face of here I am. I was just thinking, I remember those feelings. It was just so it's seeing the joy on so many people's faces. We had someone come up to us, and I can't remember what city was it. It was either Hobart or Brisbane, who said, "This is unironically the best day of my entire life." And I just sort of thought, well, firstly, that's a bit sad, but secondly, that's lovely.
I think they posted that on Twitter, I think.
Yes, one of our that came up.
And I read that out to you and Sylvester as we were driving. So
that's right.
Yeah, so I've been sharing some of the comments with Sylvester throughout. Some of the funny memes. There was a funny meme going around that he laughed at with wife looking at her husband, thinking that he's thinking about other women, but in the thought bubble in his head is, I can't wait for Sylvester's event. So yes. He thought that was funny. But yeah, like you said, the joy of other fans and just seeing all the guys together, seeing everyone socializing through the lunch breaks and all the chatter going on. This is what events used to be like, Philip. Do you remember?
Yeah,
do you remember those days?
Yeah, I do.
I think that's what.
And just the gathering of, not rival podcasts, but it was just wonderful having different podcast people coming. And so, Melbourne, we had a whole group of, the representation of the Doctor Who show, the Blake's podcast, what it's called now, sorry. What else was the podcast was there? I think
it's Space. Is it Spacefall?
Spacefall, thank you, Spacefall. Then there was the oldest Australian Doctor Who podcast was represented there too, with
42 to Doomsday.
42 to Doomsday. So that was great. And then in Brisbane, we had more podcasters, the younger gen turned up.
It was all the oldies down in Melbourne, and then
all the oldies down in Melbourne, all the youngies in Brisbane. It made me feel very old.
It was fantastic. I was actually a little bit in awe of those guys, because we had Josh Snares, we had Crispy Pro, and the 50% podcast, who travelled all the way over to Brisbane from Perth. So really great.
Perth and Adelaide, we had people come from. So Josh
Yeah.
came from Adelaide. The 50% podcast came from Perth. And they got a bit of time with Sylvester as well. But just watching their professionalism too, and it's just we've had people reach out to help us, and I'm just going to start. I won't mention anyone. If I've written down names, I'll do it. But I haven't written down names, I won't do it. But yeah, we had people in every city who would go and pick up from airports or drop off to airports, or pick up things left behind and put them in Ubers to give to other people. I will mention Chris, who was with us in every city except for Hobart. So it was just wonderful that he came and helped us in every city. But everywhere we went, there were people who helped, or there were people who offered to help for next time. So it was just. But aside from that, just the stories and just the people chatting and having a good time. They may have
And
been
of
complaints.
course, we mentioned Chris, but I could also mention Todd as well, because Todd has been one of the event organisers for Sydney and the Doctor Who Club of Australia for years, and so it's great to still have him involved as well, and it's always great to catch up with him.
Yeah, it is. But you've got to start naming people, you get in trouble. That's why I was.
Oh, okay.
because the reality is there's been so many people helping in so many places. And and every location had different people there who actually helped out, and so very thankful for that. Looking forward. I mean, for those who have we announced it here? I'm not sure we've announced it here. We have the next event.
I don't think we have.
We haven't. So we have the next event already lined up, which is Matthew Waterhouse is coming out for the last 2 weekends in March. He'll be doing Melbourne in one weekend, and I was only going to do Sydney, and somehow, I don't quite know how it's happened, we're going to do Adelaide with Matthew as well. So we'll be doing Melbourne, and then we'll do Adelaide on the Saturday, fly back to Sydney on the Sunday, and do Sunday as well in Sydney. So we're just only going to do 3 cities. So everyone else, it is just 3 weekends has been too much. I still have a job to do. This is just me as a fan doing things for fans. So we're just going to cut down to 3 cities, and making plans for what we'll do else after Matthew. But we want to announce that at least till Matthew. So stop asking.
Yes. Fantastic. All right. So if you want more information on Matthew Waterhouse in Australia, you can go over to sirensofaudio.com and check out the details there. There'll be links to tickets and things like that. You can register. And it's one thing, as fans, we're not an organization, we're not a company. So to be able to organize events, it's much, much easier if you book in advance, so we know who's coming. And it makes it very, very tricky if everyone decides to come 2 days beforehand, because we may not have enough space and we may have to turn people away, which is something we would never want to do.
No, and we came close because we had 4 of the
Very
5
close.
4 of the 5 locations almost. Well, 2 of them we went over by 20 people that we were supposed to have, because and we just didn't know we were going to get those numbers, because the amount of numbers that came in the last 2 weeks was gigantic. So even if you just buy your entry ticket, if nothing else, so we know you're coming, and then you save up for your autographs and photos and other things you want to get for the day, that's fine. Don't feel like you've got to buy everything at once. We really need to know how many seats we have in case we have to move. And there's at least 2 locations we almost needed to move. Though bizarrely.
In fact, you did move.
And actually, yes, we did move. Yes, Adelaide, we moved. We did move 2 weeks before. Bigger up us, we just didn't know. So that makes things a little bit awkward when we don't know.
Adelaide forgot to tell the photographer, so almost a catastrophe, but we worked it out on the day.
Yes, I'm actually sitting in the interview, and realised the photographer's arrived yet. I have this sudden thought of, oh heck, I don't think I told the photographer. I'm trying to figure out, how do I communicate with Drain that we need to communicate with this photographer? And I asked Sylvester a long question and then just walk off, and he's going, "Where are you going?"
Yeah, that's hilarious when those things happen.
Yes,
all right, lots of fun.
He was a wise man and trying to track us down. He got there in plenty of time and did a great job. Can I just say, we had all our photographs across all of Australia. Super happy with the help we got and the photographies that we got, just lovely shots of people.
Fantastic. All right, let's crawl up out of the rabbit hole. We're going to talk about Dalek Empire, the first series of that, created by Nicholas Briggs. To start us off, let's throw in a trailer.
I remember what it was like before the Daleks came to Vega 6. The air was always fresh. The suns were always high in the sky. The water in the marsh lakes, always a sparkling blue. That's the way I remember it.
Dalek Empire, an adventure on 4 CDs.
All conquered planets will be exploited for their technological and industrial resources.
Part 1, Invasion of the Daleks, available now.
Susan Mendez!
I don't want to die! You know that! I know you know that! Look, let's stop pretending. So, alright, I'll do your dirty work for you. I'll do it! I'll do it, alright? Just leave me alone!
Part 2, The Human Factor, available now.
The invasion of the Daleks has begun!
All right, Philip, let's start off by asking, do you remember when this came out? Do you remember hearing it for the first time and how you felt?
I do remember, because I know I bought it all as, it came out almost monthly, but I bought it all as 4 discs at one time. And I have in my head, I probably actually bought it off the Doctor Who Club of Australia. I have a feeling it may have actually been at a Whoventure that Tom ran. I can't be 100% sure where I got it, but I'm pretty certain I got all 4 discs, because I do remember I listened to it in a binge session, because I couldn't stop, because every episode was just kept me driving it. But it would have been soon after it came out. I mean, we tend to get things quite late in Australia, because they had to be posted out. Like everything Doctor Who, it always, until now, with streaming, it always came often months later. So it would have been out in the UK at least 6, maybe 9, 12 months. And I think I would have seen some stuff in Doctor Who magazine about it, and being curious about it, but I didn't have high expectations. I thought, a series.
Why's that?
Well, it's going to be a series without the Doctor, and
Okay.
I'm not a huge. I mean, I like the Daleks, but they're not my biggest thing ever. And it was. I think I had in my head, because I'd read some of the stuff that Terry Nation wanted to do, taking the Daleks to America, and that was something that just didn't particularly interest me. And so I bought it because I'm loyal, and because even by that stage I was trusting Big Finish, because the Big Finish at that stage were just having the opening run of everything was fantastic. And there was the link with the Genocide Machine. Can I remember the 3 of them that went together? Genocide Machine was
Apocalypse.
first.
There was 4
one.
actually. There was 4. There was the Genocide Machine,
Yeah.
the Apocalypse Element, the Mutant Phase, and then they attached Time of the Daleks to it as well, the Paul McGann one.
I had totally forgotten that was connected in any way, but I'll believe you. But it was the other way around, though, wasn't it? Genocide Machine. No. Apocalypse Element was the last one. So it was Genocide Machine was fairly early on. It was one of Sylvester's early ones.
Well, Mutant Phase was actually the last one.
Was it really?
I think that after the Mutant Phase is when the 8th Doctor run started.
So was the Mutant Phase last?
Yes, I'm just looking. The Mutant Phase was 15, and then Storm Warning was number 16.
What was Apocalypse Element?
11.
Really?
Yep.
Oh, well, there you go. Okay. So I think because I enjoyed the lead up Dalek stories so much, and they really were all excellent. Those 3 stories, and Time of the Daleks I love too. A bit of Shakespeare quoting Daleks. I really had enjoyed so much what those had brought in. So I guess I was kind of looking forward to that, but I just thought, no Doctor. I just wasn't sure how good it would be. And then, of course, once I listened to it, Sarah Marrett and her character, I just fell in love with. Gareth Thomas from Blake 7 was there. He plays Blake in Blake 7, but he was playing Callendorf. And so those 2 in particular, I just really loved the characterization. I loved how they interplayed with each other. I loved, their voices. As a Sarah Marrett, I was just so blown away by her as a voice actress and what she was doing. It's the whole 4 episodes just captured me. And the Daleks are in it, but the Daleks aren't the stars of it. They're definitely there in the background. They're doing a lot, but it's what's going on around them. It's the human drama and the pain they bring, but it's such a huge scale. I don't think I've ever heard a Doctor Who scale. Well, Doctor Who story. Well, the universe of Doctor Who, the scale is just galaxy wide and huge. And I mean, I'd love to see the Dalek Master Plan, which I think would almost captures the same sort of idea as well. But in some ways, this was actually done on an even vaster scale than that in 4 episodes. What was it? When did you first listen to it? Do you know what your memories are?
I can't remember exactly because, but it was pretty early on, and I was very, very impressed with it because I'm always very open about the fact that the Daleks are not my favorite Doctor Who monster. I'm never. I love, of course, I love the Daleks, and I can't imagine Doctor Who without the Daleks, but they're just not my favorite thing. I find other things more interesting. But I found the Daleks in this to be extremely interesting because this is the Daleks without the Doctor around, who is always going to win in the end. So Nick's been able to write a story here where you just don't know what's going to happen because in Doctor Who, the Doctor's going to win. That's just how he's going to do it. Here, we don't know. And you're right. When you mention the Daleks Master Plan, how it spans the galaxy, and they go to all these different planets and it's huge, massive scope. Dalek Empire is the same, but it starts off at a small scale. It starts off with a romance between Albie Brooke and Susan Mendez, and they and they quickly get separated. So we get the romance in the first episode, and they get separated, and it turns into this story of Albie trying to reunite with Suze, or initially thinking that she's dead, but then trying to reunite with her. But then there's also the story. So there's that story. Then we find out slowly throughout the episodes more and more that he's a secret agent. There's other stuff going on. There's a thing called Project Infinity that we sort of hear about all the way through till the final episode, which is called Project Infinity. But then you've got the story of Suze as a slave who stands up to the Daleks, and the Daleks decide to use her to infuse hope into their slave force so that they have a more efficient slave force. And because she's made friends with Karlendorf, the Knight of Elisha, and the Knights of Elisha appeared first in the Sirens of Time, she has him by her side too. So he starts off with a lesser role in the start, but I think as Nick will talk about that more in the interview as to why his role progressively got more and more. But that's a fascinating role as well. And yeah, so there's the Daleks are manipulating Suze as well because she thinks she's doing one thing, but in reality the Daleks are manipulating her. And then you've got all then there's interesting, like this is where the characters of the Daleks, the character of the Emperor Dalek, the Supreme Dalek, particularly the Emperor Dalek, who seems to have this link with Susan Mendez, and it becomes more and more interesting. And when you get into series 2, it's even more interesting again with that. But we're not going to talk about that this time. We will down the track for sure. So it's all these different things, and you're traveling to all different parts of the galaxy. It's a massive canvas that Nick has put together with this sort of small story between these 2 or 3 people and the Daleks, and these people that come in around them, but a very small core in the series, which is fascinating. He does that so well. It's what he does a lot, and this was the first big example of that.
Yeah, no, it's a timeless tale, and I enjoyed it as much listening to it a week ago, actually maybe even more than when I first listened to it, because it's still just, it blows my mind. It's been a long time since I listened to it, and I'd forgotten bits and things happening, and some of the structural things that he'd done, because the end of episode 3 is actually quite big, and then he retells things in the episode 4. It's typical Nick Briggs in terms of storytelling, but I don't score big finishes. But if Nick's listening, it's a 10 out of 10, because I don't think he could have done anything better. I think everything is perfectly. And Nick, as the writer, director, writer of the music, and the sound editor, and the sound designer, unbelievable. Like, gosh, what this man has managed to achieve. It's just astounding.
I mean, this is very early on in Big Finish. He set the bar very, very high for himself with this one. This is Nick Briggs at his heights. So, yeah. Interesting titles too. They're taken from various Doctor Who stories. Some of them are, particularly the two middle ones. The Human Factor, of course, which was from Evil of the Daleks. We know that very well. And Death to the Daleks was the name of episode 3, which we all know that it's one of Nick's favourite Doctor Who stories from the television as well. But it's kind of different the way they've weaved that title into the story and how that makes sense and all pans out. But yeah, totally recommend it. Some interesting guest cast come in as well. This is where Jez Fielder, he's cast with different names. He uses different names in various CDs. Sometimes he's Jeremy James. Sometimes he's Jez Fielder. Sometimes is it Jez James sometimes? If you see a David Sachs through there, that was a pseudonym that Nick used as well, which I don't think we talk about in the interview. But he uses a pseudonym there. I like the covers. The artwork of the covers is great because they're using the Dalek font, which is making it look like it's, the 60s style Dalek fonts from the comics, which is fantastic. So, yeah. Was there anything else you wanted to say about these recordings?
No, I think we should chat with Nick because we're going to bring up a whole heap of stuff with him and he's going to explain a whole heap of stuff as well.
Yeah. So let's cross over now to our chat with Nicholas Briggs.
Well, we've been discussing Dalek Empire already, but of course the best person to speak to Dalek Empire about is the person who wrote it, directed it, did the music, the sound design, and started it, Nick Briggs. Nick, thanks for joining us.
It's a great pleasure.
Now, I know we are taking you back a long way to the Dalek Empire, and my understanding is this was the first spin-off that Big Finish would do from the Doctor Who series main range.
That is my recollection as well, yes.
And it was handed to you because who else would you hand away the first big step into a new world and realm but you? As the first writer for Big Finish. And so how did Dalek Empire come about? How did you manage to convince Gary that this is something, or was it Jason, that this should happen?
Yeah, I think it was all a bit sneaky, actually. I had an idea. I mean, I think as I've said before in other interviews, my initial idea when asked for Big Finish was to start with a big Dalek story, but we didn't have the rights then. So we got the rights and Gary immediately planned 3 Dalek stories for our main Doctor Who range, which is what turned out to be the Genocide Machine, the Mutant Phase, and the Apocalypse Element. Yes. The Apocalypse Elephant, as I liked to call it. And so an invasion of Gallifrey. What better thing could you do? And he gave them the umbrella title of Dalek Empire. I don't know whether I'd already come up with that name. Let's say it was Gary. And I thought, and I said to Jason, I'd love to adapt the Dalek book, the old blue Dalek book annual thing from the 60s. But when I read through it again, I remember saying at the time that I thought, it's all a little bit too unscientific for me. Not that Dalek Empire is particularly scientifically accurate, but it doesn't. There's this whole thing that went on with Terry Nation about not knowing the difference between the solar system, the galaxy, and the universe, which is it just blew my mind. So I thought I'd like to create something in the spirit of that sort of epic tale, but without the Doctor in it. And as I remember it, I spoke to Jason more about it, and he was quite keen to do it. And I'm not quite sure what Gary's involvement was, but there was something surreptitious about it, because I remember that Gary was away and we put it on the website while he was away. So he came back from holiday to find that it was all happening. And I'm not sure entirely how pleased he was about it. But it was very much my thing. And Gary was very, very good and generous at allowing me to have my space. I think, he's a really dear friend, and I can absolutely say with my hand on my heart, I love him dearly. And he But he and I didn't always get on creatively. And I think he always felt that I secretly wanted to take over from him, which I absolutely didn't.
You didn't want to take over from Gary, but you did.
Well, I did, but that's a whole. I did take over from Gary, but that's a whole other story. But that
you didn't gazump him, though. That's what.
And it was never my aim. I just wanted to do the things. And Gary's very wise about people and what motivates them. And I think he thought as long as Nick is happy doing his little thing now and again, I think he's not going to be any trouble. And I think he was always very generous about the work I did and liked it. And would come back and commission me for new Doctor Who stories. But yeah, so I think there was a bit of unnecessary subterfuge went on, because I think I was just in a very childish way sort of scared that he would veto it. And I wanted it very much to be, my vision for this particular series. And I got John Ainsworth on board to do the script editing, and he held me to account creatively, sort of saying, what does this mean? Have another think about that, Nick, So that's sort of how it came about, really, the idea. And then I was writing it an episode at a time, obviously, but I mean, writing it, recording it, and then writing the next one, and then recording the next one. So quite often I had a sort of overarching plan, but I didn't know in precise detail what was going to happen next. And I was able to react to what the actors did and said, and I think I really like that performance. I think they're going to get more in the next episode. And Gareth Thomas had a few complaints about Carlendorf and about what I'd said about the character in the description and what he ended up doing, being brave and a warrior. And I think Gareth doesn't do any warrior behavior, does he? So I put more of that in because to keep Gareth happy, really. Gareth was lovely about it, by the way. I phoned him up to ask him to do it because I'd been really impressed with him in Storm Warning. I mean, really impressed. I thought he was amazing. And I just phoned him up because that's what we used to do in those days. Phone people. Do you remember that? And I said I'd like him to do it. I sort of described it to him. I said, do you want to see the script? He said, no, I trust you. Fine. Brilliant. And of course, Sarah Moat had to be in it because she was my favourite actor of all time. One of the great things, by the way, about doing Sirens of Time is that revamping Sirens of Time recently is that I did a behind the scenes thing and I got Sarah in and we had a really lovely interview, which is part of the extras, which I hope people will enjoy. So yeah, Sarah has that quality about her where she's not starry, and she's not sort of massively egotistical and doesn't come across that way as a performer. But there's something about the way she performs that makes you want to follow her story. And that's essential in a lead actor. And it was a beautiful performance and great to work with her. Yeah.
So it was amazing. So it was sort of writing like Charles Dickens, where you write a chapter, send it off, and then you write the next chapter for the following interview, which is astounding that you managed to hang it together so well. I assume you've got this narrative thread through it, so which of course, spoilers. Make sure you listen to this before you talk. Go and listen to these 4 episodes. You use a very clever narrative device, which is what appears to be an older. I was going to say America, Susie Mendez character doing a narration in terms of her bit, but later on it's revealed it's actually something quite different, which is a clever twist. Did you always knew that twist was going to happen, though, I assume? Yes. So there was a lot of plotting you had done, a lot of the ideas you had done. Yeah,
I knew I wanted the audience to think it was an older Susan Mendez who was narrating. Yeah. I think it wouldn't be honest to me if I didn't say it occasionally occurred to me, well, maybe it is really Susan Mendez. And I thought, no, I'll stick to my original plan. It's not her. It can't be her. No, because I want her to comment on this, and this. So I did want that to be intriguing. Yeah. I don't know why I was doing it episode by episode. I just think I didn't know any better. I don't know why I chose to do it like that. But I remember because it was getting really good sales, Jason came into one of the studio sessions and he said, "Stop killing people. He said, we need another series, and I'm frightened that everyone's going to be dead at the end of episode 4, and I really don't want that to happen. And I think I eased off on killing people because Jason said, look, seriously, I'm going to need you to do another series, you know.
You were recording 1 week, 1 month, and then it was being released the following month. Like you were doing a 4-week
Was it really
turnaround.
that close?
Yeah. So, episode 1, it was recorded on the 6th of May and released in June 2001.
Right.
So all of them, so you were recording. And
what about episode 2 then?
Episode 2 was recorded on the 3rd of June and released in August.
Oh, so it was recorded before the release of the first one. That's interesting. So I must have just been, so I would have been informed by the experience of doing the first one, not the reaction to the first one. That's the interesting thing. And then there's a gap of 2 months. Yeah, that's interesting.
Yes.
I think they were being released as quickly as I could do them. I'd have to say that the reason that was possible is that I just wasn't doing anything else at the time.
Yeah.
So, although, hold on a sec, August. No, I must have just finished episode 2 before I went off to Nottingham to do some weekly rep. Because I would have done, in August, July, August, I would have done at least 4 weeks, possibly 6 in those days of weekly rep at the Theatre Royal Nottingham. So
episode 3 you recorded in September, released in October.
Yeah, wow. I would have done that. Yeah, I would have recorded that when I got back, I suppose.
Yeah, and then December.
When I was younger, I had much more energy.
And you did all-nighters back then.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Just the thought of it makes me want to lie down and have a snooze now.
I was going to mention definitely. I was going to mention the death count when it came to Dalek stories, because I was thinking the death count, without the Doctor around, can you have more jeopardy like that as opposed to the TV? So then I'm thinking about Resurrection of the Daleks and other stories where there's massive death counts, but
these were series characters, weren't they? So
that's right.
I absolutely wanted to play with that. I wanted the audience to feel like, oh God, this person who I've now invested in might get killed. I wanted there to be more sort of danger for them, and for it not to be so cozy. I mean, yeah.
Are the Daleks? What's the difference? I was going to ask if the Daleks are better without the Doctor there. What's the dynamic change when the Doctor's not there? Is it? I find it more interesting personally. But what about you?
Well, I think it's. I think both things are interesting. I did feel, because when it's Doctor Who and the Doctor's the main character, the Doctor is a fascinating, interesting person, and that's what the audience want. And that's what, when you're telling a Doctor Who story, you want the Doctor to be dominant. When you're telling a Dalek story, you can flirt with the idea of almost making the Daleks the main character. I mean, you can't really, I mean, in a Breaking Bad way, in the lead character, or The Shield is perhaps a better example of an old cop show. It's quite old now, isn't it? Of where the main characters are actually bad, but you're still fascinated by them. You can't quite go that far with the Daleks because they are, they have automaton-like qualities and are not. But, I kind of, with the Dalek Supreme and coercing Susan Mendes, and that's Susan Mendes, something that Russell referenced to me just before I was filming Dalek the night before. He said, like the way the Dalek used to talk to Susan Mendes in Dalek Empire, he said, I want more of that sort of fierce intelligence and cunning. And so it does allow you to spend more time analyzing Dalek behavior and strategies, and so you can feature them more. I was fascinated by the whole thing I did with when Suze is collapsing, and no, it's Karlendorf, isn't it? Who's one of them's injured. Which one's injured? And they're pretending for the sake of the other
ankle,
one.
Him, yeah,
it's his ankle. That's right, and she's helping him. because otherwise the Dalek will kill him as someone who can't work efficiently. And the cutting back and forth of a Dalek in the control room observing it and then contacting the Dalek Supreme and saying there's atypical behavior there. Is this important? And the Dalek Supreme intervening and talking to the other Dalek to tell the Dalek who's about to extend. And I like that sort of whole process of Dalek communication and command that perhaps you wouldn't go into quite so much in a Doctor Who story. And, and certainly it's always a massive shock for me when I've done a Doctor Who story for the television, just how unimportant the Daleks are, because when I'm filming it, I think it's all about the Daleks. And then I watch the episode back and I think, oh no, it's about all these other people. And I'm like this noisy background thing that just threatens to kill people now and again. It's a different kettle of fish, with the exception of the one where the Daleks and the Cybermen had the punch up, Doomsday, yeah. I never remember the titles, isn't it awful? Because I never got scripts with titles on. They just had numbers on, so I didn't process that information. I was quite shocked, as I'm sure I've told you approximately 3 million times before, when I was shown the edit for that before it went out, and it was, it was like 15 minutes of me talking to myself, it felt like. And I thought, there's no way they'd put that out on primetime BBC One. They're bound to cut some of that down. And then I saw it and I thought, oh, no, they really have done that. It was all about me for quite a few scenes.
What about me?
Yeah, me.
That's one of the things I noticed along the way was in the first 2 episodes, you've got a reporter being a fairly major character. Then he suddenly disappears in episode 3 to be replaced by the American police female officer. Now, I'm assuming that was supposed to be the same character that followed through.
Not at all.
Not at all. Well, there you go.
There's no reason why. Pelham, wasn't it? Played by my old friend John Wadmore. What was his last scene then? You know better than me. What did he end up doing?
Well, I don't know now, because he just wasn't there in the 3rd disc. And suddenly she was.
Yeah, it certainly
so my assumption was he was actually always the Dalek agent following around, and then he was going to be revealed in episode 4 like she was, and for some reason that something had happened to the actor between. No?
I honestly don't think so. No, I can't, because John was a really good old friend of mine who I'd known since drama school, John Wadmore.
He just disappears.
That was about. Whatever happened to... That's a new series we have to do. Whatever happened to Pelham? Yeah. I think he was a bit of a sad character, wasn't he? A bit of a... And a bit of a coward as well, wasn't he? Yeah.
Yeah, but he kept turning up all the time, and with
I'd be interested to know what his last scene was. He just got left on a planet, did he?
No, he and Albie were off heading for the spaceship, to escape the planet from the Highnesses.
Yeah,
and he and Albie sort of left together and escaped together, and then we moved to the next show, and it's 6 months later, because the way you use time is. It's such an epic show. It's over so many years and covers the entire galaxy. So it's such a huge epic story.
And he's just with her, is he? The next time we see Albie.
Well, next time Albie's, yes, he's with her, and then we have a flashback to where they met and she tried to arrest him, and then suddenly she's now on the scene the whole time, and then later ends up being the Dalek agent. But I'd always assumed it was supposed to actually, the reason why the journalists kept turning up, and that was supposed to, okay.
Yeah, really, it's one of those awful answers where I say, I really just don't remember. But I think I would have remembered if I was having to replace John at the last minute. I'm sure that didn't happen, because he was, sounds an awful thing to say, but he was definitely available. And he was very, very good as well.
He was great.
I wonder what happened there. I wonder what happened. Perhaps we'll never know.
No, okay.
No more for the trailer.
Now, in terms of, is this a sort of story that's been brewing in your head for a long time? Because I know Daleks are a major part of your whole upbringing and part of your drawing life. Has a lot of this story been playing around in your head for a long time? The fact that we've got a Knight of Valicia there, who are in the Sirens of Time, and I know that it's part of the things you did before Big Finish. was Knights of Alicia. How much of this had been brewing in your head for years, and then you were able to actually get on paper?
Well, I don't remember, but I'd certainly the Knights of Alicia, because I just created those for Sirens of Time, and so while I was I'm very much one for sort of pulling together other ideas I've had and seeing if they'll fit. And I thought, oh, that would be a nice link, wouldn't it? If I developed that a bit more and have him as a Knight of Alicia and having the whole Sancroft thing as a sort of ancient memory. But I think my initial ideas for Dalek Empire started pretty soon after Sirens of Time. Soon after I'd finished work on that, I was sort of sniffing around for the next thing to do. And I would have been getting. I remember writing lots of preliminary documents and sharing them with Jason and John Ainsworth, saying this is what I'd like to do. Yeah.
I love the connection you've got to other stories around that time, like the one. I keep coming up with these little minute nerdy things, like the sound effect for the Garazone Bazaar pops up again in, or it's been in Sword of Orion, and it comes up and there's little bits and pieces that have been used all over the place, which is kind of...
Well, I spent so much time making that sound effect. I thought someone's got to go back there.
Did you?
So, yeah.
It was good.
Yeah, it was just like every sound.
It's actually one of my favourite scenes in Sword of Orion, actually.
Sorry, say again.
One of my favourite scenes in the Sword of Orion story, actually, is in the Garazone Bazaar.
And what do you think the little... What do you think that is?
I don't know. I just assumed it was samples on a keyboard.
No, but what do you think it's meant to be?
Oh, some kind of...
I gave it away by saying... That's what it's meant
like this. Yeah.
It's some kind of...
A snake charmer.
Yeah, it's something... It's meant to be a bit like that. I think it was highly influenced by Blade Runner, all that. All those sort of exotic sounds in there. But a lot of people think it's a phone. A lot of people think it's a phone ring.
Okay. I can see why they're saying that. Yeah.
When I say a lot of people, I think possibly one person said it. Yeah. And I don't even remember their name. And where are they now?
No, but I love Dalek Empire and the way that your storytelling, you tell these vast stories over massive distances and, different time periods. And it comes out throughout your writing, throughout Big Finish's history, which I really enjoy. And this was a prime example of that.
I'm a huge... I mean, it's weird. I always think it's weird when people say this, but I'm a huge fan of history. I like history documentaries, and I like that the whole sprawl of different events happening and affecting something centuries later, and it being vast, but then it just coming down to interactions between two or three people. The difference between the vast and the minute and personal fascinates me, and it feels like and when you're creating a story, you have as many creatives watching this, and perhaps you will as well recognize it, you just want to create that feeling in yourself, like that. No, that feels right, that feels real, that this feels like something in the context of this fantasy world I'm creating that could reasonably have happened within these parameters. That's what you're looking for, that feeling of, not just throwing stuff at the wall and seeing if it sticks, monkey tennis or whatever, just saying weird, stupid things for no reason and all bets are off and there's no scientific or pseudo-scientific logic. Actually working things out so that it sounds credible and plausible. Yeah. Within the fantasy, obviously.
Yeah, we got a similar thing in The Human Frontier, which I'm really looking forward to that sequel too.
Don't even talk about it.
He didn't.
I thought you'd forgotten.
Never.
There's a lot of philosophy that you use the narrator for, in terms of, particularly the first episode, asking questions, deep questions like, what is it that makes a person want to go on? And there's this exploration of what it is to be human. Have you studied a lot of philosophy? Do you like trying to because there's a lot of deep, ponderous understandings of what is about hope and about survival and you're really playing with those issues a lot throughout the 4 episodes.
Well, I've never studied philosophy. I've never, educationally. I'm fascinated by it, and also, not to overshare, but I think, certainly in recent years, I've discovered that I've spent a lot of my life being quite seriously depressed and anxious. And so stuff like that was just going through my head, while I was making a cup of tea, I was always thinking about things like that. Why do we go on? Why is there hope? And when people are in appalling situations, when their whole, and I won't reference anything that's going on in the world today, but when they're in, when their homes have been ripped from under them, and how is it that people can still function in environments like that and come out of it and learn something and develop as human beings? Those things fascinate me about the human condition because I fear them as well, and I want to exorcise those fears in investigating those kinds of situations and trying, because you're writing what is essentially an adventure story. You have the license for things to kind of turn out all right in the end, although they didn't turn out all right for the lady policeman in Dalek Empire. She comes a cropper in Dalek War, doesn't she?
She does.
She's just in a spaceship with a guy and the air's running out, and then we never see them again, and there are those desolate moments, I think, because, there's parts of my personality that are quite depressive. There are quite a few desolate moments in my stories where you think, really? Did you want to do that, Nick? That's very depressing. But, to me, that has the ring of truth about it. Life isn't all happy, clappy, celebratory stuff. I mean, for goodness sake, we do need a bit of that. But, most people are interested in negative things. Let's face it. If someone says, I've got something really interesting to tell you, actually, I went for a cup of coffee and it was fantastic. No one's interested. They're much more interested in the story about how the waiter was terrible, or it was overpriced, or the shop closed too early. Those are the things that human beings are drawn to, aren't we? We're interested. I tell you what, she was terrible. He was awful. That. Oh, I tell you what, they were very nice. What? There's no story, is there? The story comes from our stories. Human stories are always about some form of crisis, even if it's just a kid's cartoon where Fluffy Bunny can't find a carrot that day. That's what. Hey, that's an idea for a series. No, it isn't. That's what our stories are about. They're about bad things. They're about terrible things, and how hopefully we can overcome them. But to add, in inverted commas, realism, sometimes they don't overcome them.
Yeah. Now, two of the stories you named after Doctor Who episodes, Invasion of the Daleks and Death to the Daleks.
Yes.
And then even the second one, The Human Factor, which of course is an allusion to Evil of the Daleks.
Yeah.
Was that just you enjoying having a bit of a play with using titles that people sound familiar?
Well, Invasion of the Daleks isn't actually a title.
It's a play on Dalek Invasion.
Exactly. Yeah. And also the Dalek book, Invasion of the Daleks, is on one of the first pages. It says Invasion of the Daleks. So, yes, I was having a bit of fun, but also sort of deploying, because they had the sort of feeling of authenticity about them, those phrases.
Yeah.
And Death to the Daleks. Can you explain to me why Death to the Daleks is called Death to the Daleks?
Because that's the catchphrase to start the invasion.
Sorry, not my story.
You're talking about the TV series.
Oh, TV show. Yeah, I've got no idea why the TV show is called that.
Exactly. I love that title, and so I wanted to do a story where that title was absolutely. They all have to shout "Death to the Daleks." Yeah, I thought, that's what I wanted to do. The human factor. Well, I mean, this is such a sad thing to confess in an interview. I was just imagining the other day if someone had found Evil of the Daleks and had this is very sad, and had got a DVD of it or a Blu-ray and just knowing how much I love Evil of the Daleks, had come round to my house and said, Nick, I've got something to play you and we're going to film your reaction, and they put it on and it starts and it's episode 1 of the Evil of the Daleks. And while I was playing this little weird thought exercise, because obviously I live in a fantasy world, I was crying. I started crying. So I have such an emotional investment in the Evil of the Daleks that to use a phrase from it, I just thought, yes, that has to be done to make Dalek Empire the most Dalek-y series that's ever been made. We have to have the phrase "the human factor" as one of the titles. Yeah, that was my gut feeling, anyway.
Or pronounced factor.
By whom?
Factor.
Oh, factor. Yes, and and largely, even though John Ainsworth, as the script editor, held me to account, I know that he and I have a lot in common in terms of our ideas, and I knew he was on my side, so he was not going to. I think the only thing he ever objected to in Dalek Empire is when I had Jupiter terraformed into a habitable world, and he said that is just so stupid. He said, you cannot do that. And I said, well, the Daleks need to have a big plan. He said, yeah, but that's just mad. It's just all gas. It's not, well, do it if you like. But he thoroughly disapproved, and quite rightly so.
Didn't he produce Space 1889?
He did, yes. Yeah, I see your point. Yeah. Well, it's the question of rules. I think his conjecture was that that Dalek Empire wasn't that kind of series where you could do something that impossible. Space 1889, yes, that's a whole thing about what if space travel had happened in Victorian times. Yeah.
Well, I got to listen to this today with my son because we were both driving up from Melbourne for the day.
Good Lord!
And he's just finished his degree on script writing. So we'd listen to an episode, then we'd stop and we analyze.
Oh my goodness! I feel under pressure now.
So it was just really great fun to get, because he's not heard it before, and I knew this was one of my favorites from years ago, and it'd been a while since I'd listened to it, and so I wanted to refresh myself to it all, and he was blown away by it as well in terms of how exciting it was. Episode 1 and the hooks that are in it for what's to come in the future, the way the tension builds, and once again, your method of storytelling in terms of using the narrator, the flashbacks, the progress, and then into the philosophy of the whole Susie Mendez, Kalendorf being introduced. And it was just hooked. We were just hooked in terms of following these characters through to see what's happening. And it's fascinating that you've got these major characters who hardly spend any time together at all. You've got a love story that you've got, in 3 minutes, and yet that epic love story lasts for 4 discs of trying to find each other, and they don't. You've got Kalendorf and Kalendorf.
Spoilers.
And Albie. Well, I've already said spoilers.
Yeah, it's years ago, for goodness sake.
Yeah. You've got Albie and Kalendorf who don't meet till the final part. So you've got these amazing relationships happening of characters. It's Game of Thrones before Game of Thrones.
Which I've never seen.
Yeah.
Well, thank you.
Epic story and epic characters not interacting with each other, but telling this huge story on a gigantic canvas.
Thank you. It's really lovely for you to say that to me. While you were talking about it, I was thinking that it's so much of it for me is gut instinct. And I'm so lucky to have been allowed to tell my stories my way. I think a lot of people I work with in the past anyway think that I'm a bit formidable because I'm a bit sort of implacable about what I want, but it's only because I'm scared that I'm not going to be able to do it in the way that feels right. It's like to me, it's almost like music. It's kind of, as I'm writing, I sort of hear, I hear the rhythm of it. I hear the sounds of it. And I think, and what needs to happen here? We just need that solo voice, just expressing something. And then immediately we tumble into a black hole or whatever. I've just got a real, that's all I'm good at. That's that the feeling of how a story should be told. And I'm really lucky that I've largely been allowed to do that. I wouldn't have been allowed to do that if, I pursued a television career. I admire people who submit themselves to that and have, people whose job it is to tear apart what you've done, to deconstruct it. People who come to your work with the prerequisite is that they're going to change it. Not that they're going to appreciate it and work out whether it should or shouldn't be changed. I am the script editor. I will be editing your script and I will find things wrong with it because that is my job. I know I'm oversimplifying it. And of course, script editors do a marvelous, essential job. But, I'm lucky that I haven't. I'm not lucky from a career point of view because, maybe if I'd been more relentless in pursuing that, but I had one little flavor of TV writing and I just knew that I didn't want to be subjected to that. And it wasn't even stuff I cared about. I was, writing for a terrible soap opera called Family Affairs, which I had to train myself to love, but the training didn't last for long. I can't write scenes about how much a carton of milk is. I can, but I just feel desolate about it. And so many of the writers who've done really well on television, throughout the world have had to start doing stuff like that and find a way through it. And, I can't do it. No good at it.
Well, I think Dalek Empire is probably the biggest story Big Finish has ever told in terms of epic in scale, in terms of years, in terms of characterizations. It's the cast you assemble are astounding in terms of there's not a bad actor in there, and they managed to capture their characters so well. No, trust me, there's not. It is astounding.
Even Jez Fielder as Stralos.
Oh, I love Jez.
No, he's amazing. I'm not being. No, I'm just being in the hope that he'd see this and go, Briggs.
Yeah, that character. But once again, that character adds to that's part of the whole tapestry, like the Dalek Master Plan. That character, a bit ridiculous, but it gave that vibe of Dalek Master Plan.
He committed to that performance. He was playing for anyone watching and listening who hasn't heard it. He's playing this insectoid creature called Hive Leader Stralos. And it was just his umpteenth voice for the episode. And I said, what are you going to do for this, Jez? He said, I've got an idea. He just launched into it. And I was genuinely on the floor laughing. I disappeared behind the mixing desk. I was on the floor. I couldn't believe it. Yeah, it was just hilarious. I think I had to. Did I bring him back?
You did?
Yeah. Just on the strength of that performance. It was just a very random performance. It was a cross between, I don't know. It had a bit of the way he did it.
It made me think of Dalek Master Plan character. Was it Zephron? One of the or Trantis.
And it was he kept doing really weird noises, just totally randomly in lines. The scenes lasted twice as long as they should have lasted because of all that. And he could see me laughing, and he just, Jez loves a challenge.
Yeah. But it's interesting how many things get prompted in here that the TV series will later do, in terms of some of the places you take the Daleks to, and some of the, I think, in terms of, the TV series will actually come back and play with those ideas. I think, they stole that from Nick.
Do you think? Like what?
I don't know. The whole ending of the Empire, when they bring in the successful Daleks and don't foresee what the consequences of that will be. We've seen that played out a few times in the new series with Victory of the Daleks and other places as well.
I suppose so. Yeah. Well, Russell was a great fan of Dalek Empire.
Yeah, well, with good reason. So anyhow, it's been a marvelous thing to listen to, and we enjoy discussing it, aren't we, Dwayne?
Yes, we are very much.
So Nick, thank you so much for coming and sharing some of your memories and being able to tap into something from so long ago, almost 25 years.
Yeah, it's made my head ache.
Time for a new.
Sorry about that.
Time for a new Dalek Empire series.
Okay, I'll get on it.
It's right after Human Frontier 2.
Yeah, you heard it here.
Invasion of the Daleks has begun!
They came screaming out of the skies, gunning down anyone who wasn't fast enough to get out of the way.
Dalek Empire, an adventure on 4 CDs.
Increase the power! We must know what they are saying!
I remember what it was like before the Daleks came to Vega 6. The air was always fresh. The suns were always high in the sky. The water in the marsh lakes, always a sparkling blue.
All conquered planets will be exploited for their technological and industrial resources. Susan Mendez!
I don't want to die! You know that! I know you know that! Look, let's stop pretending. So, alright, I'll do your dirty work for you. I'll do it! I'll do it, alright? Just leave me alone!
I know what I have to do. Take control. Find Suze.
You may not ever find her.
Then I'll die trying.
Who is he? Outside!
Someone I thought was dead! Someone I'd fallen in love with. But you wouldn't understand that, would you? Just put it down to the human factor.
Do not move! Do not move! You are prisoners! We have superior numbers. We have the superior technology. We will conquer your galaxy. It is only a matter of time.
Kill him!
Exterminate!
No! Angel of
They are sure that they will win. That they will conquer our galaxy.
You want us to show pity?
Dalek Empire, an adventure on 4 CDs. Available now.
Always great to chat with Nick. So it was lovely to talk to him about this, and I suspect he enjoyed going back and thinking about this project from so long ago as well.
Yes, I can say so thankful for Nick. He is so busy, and yet when
Yes.
we reach out to him, he finds his time. And yeah, he should be having lunch. He stayed with us, and we chatted and gossiped on way past this. But we are so thankful for him giving up his time to talk to us. And I hope you've
Thanks,
got
Nick.
a lot out of that, because there's so much there and such amazing knowledge. So enjoy it, suck it dry.
And there's more Nick Briggs to come very shortly, so stay tuned with some other projects that he's releasing soon, and particularly with the Sirens of Time Redux. We spoke to him about that too. So we look forward to sharing that with you. But to wrap up the episode today, we're going to just mention a couple of things that we have been listening to. And it's actually, hang on. Yeah, that's right. It's your turn, Philip,
There you
to go first.
Well, I have been doing lots of flying backwards and forwards to different cities, to and from Sydney and around the place. And so the audios I downloaded to take with me on the plane and listen to on the plane was the new Masters set. I'm not going to talk too much about it, because we will discuss this more in our monthly overview in a couple of weeks' time. But the War Master Future Phantoms, it was called. We're still getting stories coming out, which have been directed and looked after by Scott Hancock. I don't know when we lose him to the.
This is his last one.
Are you sure?
Positive.
There you go. Okay, so it'll be sad to lose Scott, because he's done such an amazing job, particularly with the War Master and the Derek Jacobi stories. These are 4 ghost stories, which basically Derek Jacobi tells, and then we go back into time. So there's a little bit of action in the present. Most of the stories take place as he tells them these ghost stories. And you'll see Derek sort of come in somewhere, but not as the master, as a different character. One wonders. But can I say, absolutely chilling, scared the life out of me. Like I don't particularly like horror or fear, but these were just so engaging. I think partly because Derek Jacobi's is so good. I'll talk about it a bit more. But Jonathan Barnes, James Goss, Lizzie Copley, and Tim Foley, 4 of Big Finish's best writers, and they've all come up with very, very, very different ghost stories. All of them managed to scare the life out of me. And I was thinking, I'm glad I'm going to play with lots of other people. There's one about a train, which I was in the wrong location being in a plane for that one, because that one was not good. But yeah, all of them are great. So, but we'll talk more. We'll talk about more. So I'm telling you what I was meant to. Yeah. What have you been listening to, Dwayne?
I've actually listened to the first one of those, and yeah, really enjoyed that. So different style, yet again with the format of those. But yeah, looking forward to hearing the rest of those before we catch up to talk about them. I today listened to Once and Future Coda, which was the 8th release from the Once and Future set that had a 12-month gap between the 7th one and this one, whereas the others were monthly releases last year. So this one features the War Master and the Fugitive Doctor. So the first appearance of Joe Martin as the Fugitive Doctor in here. So there's some interesting single lines that you've got to listen out for here as to the identity of the Fugitive Doctor, where she might be, where she might come from, and that's going to be part of the mystery, I assume, as we go forward into the Fugitive Doctor box sets. And I suspect Big Finish will be exploring that more and more. I like the fact that they've created a sort of a separate kind of Doctor Who. Like, who is this Fugitive Doctor? And they've got that mystery there. So we're going to find that out, which is great. It's going to be good to explore that journey. If you enjoyed Joe Martin as the Fugitive Doctor on television, you're really going to enjoy her here. She's in fine form next to Jonathan Carley as the War Master. The story virtually takes place straight after the final Once and Future, which was called The Union. So immediately after this one takes place. And yeah,
any idea why they waited the year before they released it then?
No, if I said gave you any reason, it would just be pure speculation.
Okay.
I don't. Maybe they wanted to. They might have wanted to have it closer to the release of Joe Martin's first stories.
Is it early next year her box set comes out?
Yes, I think it's January or February, unless that's the master ones are coming out first. I can't remember, so I'm talking off the top of my head, so I don't know for sure. But yeah, that's a good question. I don't know the answer. It might be in a vortex, so we'd have to check that out if we wanted to go and research that. Or if you know, drop it in the comments. We'd love to know. So yeah, that's what I've been listening to today. We'll talk about that more too, no doubt, in a couple of weeks' time at our monthly retrospective. So thank you very much to Nick Briggs and for joining us today, and thank you all for listening, watching, wherever you are. If you want to drop us a like, a comment, subscribe, share the podcast wherever you like, join our Facebook group. We've got a private Facebook group. We've got a public Facebook page. You can follow us on X. You can follow us on Blue Sky now. We're on Blue Sky as well, where everyone seems to be going. Where else are we? Instagram as well, and Threads. So we've got all bases covered, and the handle is @AudioSirens. So check us out there. Of course, Philip, I appreciate you coming on to chat with me tonight, because I know you're exhausted, because I'm exhausted, and I imagine you're more exhausted than me.
I'm ready for bed, that's for sure.
All right. Thanks, Philip. We'll catch you all next time.
Thanks, Dwayne. Bye, everyone.
This has been the Sirens of Audio, and our review of Dalek Empire Series 1 with our guest Nicholas Briggs and your hosts Philip Edney and Dwayne Bunny. Theme music by Joe Kramer. Catch up with all the latest info, including news on our live events, at sirensofaudio.com. Got some feedback? Send your email to sirensofaudio@gmail.com, or you can find us on all our social media @AudioSirens. Thanks for listening, audiophiles. We'll hear you next time.